Hey guys, today is April 22nd, 2:30 2:30 p.m. Let's continue our A Christmas Carol from Charles Dickens book reading series. Let's go. But soon the steeples called good people all to church and chapel, and away they came. But soon the steeples called good people, all, to church and chapel, and away they came, flocking through the streets in the best clothes and with the gayest faces. And at the same time there emerged from scores of by streets, lanes, and nameless turnings, innumerable people carrying their dinners to the bakers' shops. The sight of these poor revelers The sight of these poor revelers appeared to interest the spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge beside him in a baker's doorway, and taking off the covers as the bearers passed, he sprinkled incense of their dinners from his torch. And it was a very uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice, when there were angry words between some dinner carriers who had jostled each other, and it was a very uncommon kind of torch. For once or twice, when there were angry words between some dinner carriers who had jostled each other, he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humor was restored directly. For they said, for they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day, and so it was. God loved it, so it was. In time the bell ceased, and the bakers were shut up, and yet there was a genial shadowing forth of all the dinners and the progress of their cooking, in the thawed blotch of wet above each baker's oven, where the pavement smoked as if its stones were cooking too. Is there a peculiar flavor in what you sprinkle from your torch? Asked Scrooge. There is, my own. Would it apply to any kind of dinner on this day? Asked Scrooge. To any kindly giver, to a poor one most. Why to a poor one most? Asked Scrooge. Because it needs it most. Because it needs it, because it needs it. Because it needs it. Because it needs it most. Because it needs it most. It needs it. It needs it. Because it needs it most. Needs it. Because it needs it most. Because it needs it most. Spirit, said Scrooge after a moment's thought. I wonder you, of all the beings in the many worlds about us, should desire to cramp these people's opportunities of innocent enjoyment. I, cried the spirit, you would deprive them of their means of dining every seventh day, offering the only day on which they can be said to dine at all, said Scrooge. Wouldn't you? Aye, cried the spirit. You seek to close these places on the seventh day, said Scrooge, and it comes to the same thing. I seek, exclaimed the spirit. Forgive me if I am wrong. Forgive me if I am wrong. Forgive me if I am wrong. It has been done in your name, or at least in that of your family, said Scrooge. There are some there are some upon this earth of yours. There are some upon the earth There are some upon this earth of yours, returned the spirit, who lay claim to know us, and who do their deeds of passion who lay claim to know us, and who do their deeds of passion, pride, ill will, hatred, envy, bigotry, and selfishness in our name, who are as strange to us and all our kith and kin, as if they had never lived. Remember that, and charge their doings on themselves, not us. Scrooge promised that he would, and they went on, invisible, as they had been before, to the suburbs of the town. It was a remarkable quality of the ghost, which Scrooge had observed at the baker's, that notwithstanding that notwithstanding his gigantic size, he could accommodate himself to any place with ease, and that he stood beneath a low roof quite as gracefully and like a supernatural creature as it was possible he could have done in any lofty hall. And perhaps it was the pleasure of the good spirit had in showing off this power of his, or else it was his own kind, generous, hearty nature, and his sympathy with all poor men that led him straight to Scrooge's clerks. For there he went, and took Scrooge with him, holding to his robe, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled, and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkling of his torch. Think of that! Bob had but 15 bob a week himself. He pocketed on Saturdays, but 15 copies of his Christian name, and yet the ghost of Christmas present blessed his four-roomed house. Four-roomed house. Then up, then up rose Mrs. Cratchit's wife, dressed out but poorly in a twice-turned gown, with raving ribbons, which are cheap and make goodly show for at sixpence, and she laid the cloth, assisted by Belinda Cratchit, second of her daughters, also brave in ribbons, while Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork in the saucepan of potatoes, and getting the corners of his monstrous shirt collar, Bob's private property, conferred upon his son an heir in honor of the day, into his mouth, rejoiced to find himself so gallantly attired, and yearned to show his linen in the fashionable parks. And now two smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing in, screaming that outside the baker's they had smelt the goose, and no wait for their own. And basking in luxurious thoughts of sage and onion, these young Cratchits danced about the table, and exalted Master Peter Cratchit to the skies, while he, not proud, although his colors nearly choked him, blew the fire, to the slow potatoes bubbling up, knocked loudly at the saucepan lid to be let out and peeled. "What has ever got your precious father then?" said Mrs. Cratchit. "And your brother, Tiny Tim, and Martha, wasn't as late last Christmas Day by half an hour?" "Here's Martha, mother," said a girl, appearing as she spoke. "Here's Martha, mother," cried the two young Cratchits. "Hurrah! There is such a goose, Martha." "Why, bless your heart alive, my dear, how late you are," said Mrs. Cratchit, kissing her a dozen times, and taking off her shawl and bonnet for her with official zeal. "We'd a deal of work to finish up last night," replied the girl, "and had to clear away this morning, mother." "Well, never mind so long as you are come," said Mrs. Cratchit. "Sit ye down before the fire, my dear, and have a warm, God bless you." "No, no, there's father coming," cried the two young Cratchits, who were everywhere at once. "Hide, Martha, hide." So Martha hid herself, and in came little Bob, the father, with at least 3 feet of comforter exclusive of the fringe, hanging down before him, and his threadbare clothes drawn up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulders. Alas, from Tiny Tim he bore a little crutch, and has his limbs supported by an iron frame. "Why, where is our Martha?" cried Bob Cratchit, looking round. "Not coming," said Mrs. Cratchit. "Not coming," said Bob, with a sudden declension in his high spirits, for he had been Tim's blood horse all the way from church, and had come home rampant. "Not coming upon Christmas Day?" Martha didn't like to see him disappointed, if it were only in joke, so she came out prematurely from behind the closet door, and ran into his arms, while the two young Cratchits hustled Tiny Tim, and bore him off to the wash house, where he might hear the pudding singing in the copper. "And how did little Tim behave?" asked Mrs. Cratchit, when she had rallied Bob on his credulity. when she had rallied Bob on his credulity, and Bob had hugged his daughter to his heart's content. As good as gold, said Bob, and better. Somehow he gets so thoughtful, sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church, because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. Bobby's voice was tremulous when he told them this, and trembled more when he said that Tiny Tim was growing strong and hardy. His active little crutch was heard upon the floor, and back came Tiny Tim before the other word was spoken, escorted by his brother and sister to his stool before the fire, and while Bob turning up his cuffs as if, poor fellow, they were capable of being made more shabby, compounded some hot mixture in a jug with a gin and lemons, and stirred it round and round and put it on the hob to simmer. Master Peter and the two ubiquitous young Cratchits went to fetch the goose, with which they soon returned in high procession. Okay, I will end this chapter here. We're gonna the author gonna still talk about the Cratchits, but I'm already almost 12 minutes mark, and for this reason I'm gonna finish it here, finish here, finish it here. Into the next chapter of a Christmas Carol book reading series. See you next time.